So we're gonna do a little cooling system service on this 2013 Dodge Avenger, and the reason is because the vents only put out heat on like the driver's side, and then it gets cool. So it starts out hottest on the driver's side near the window, and then it's still pretty hot in the middle. Then the vent next to that is kind of cool. Then the one furthest away on the passenger side near the window is like cold. And there's like two things it could be. It's either the actuator or the heater core is plugged. And it's a pretty common thing on these. A lot of the Chrysler products for the heater cores to get plugged. Worked at Chrysler for 3 years, did tons of heater core flushes. And it's all because of the coolant. And basically, the what was I going to say? There's a quick test you can do with scan tool. I know probably a bunch of you aren't going to have the scan tool to be able to do the test, but there's a little procedure that the scan tool will do. It runs all the actuators inside of the HVAC housing, and it does all the doors and makes sure that all the actuators go through their full cycles, and it tells you if they pass or fail. So I did that test, and they all pass, and I can turn all the modes and the temperature from hot to cold and all that stuff. It's all good. But like I say, the coolant, it only lasts for so long. This is Chrysler's 10-year coolant, or OAT, O-A-T. And like I say, it's good for 10 years. So this is a 2013 car. We're now in 2024. But what happens is, I find, even before the 10-year mark, the coolant starts to break down over the years, and it actually starts to eat away at the interior cooling system components, like your gaskets and mostly a lot of metals. And it's almost like you get like a silt or sand buildup. And I think it's all those small particles, microparticles, and a lot of it builds up and it collects inside of the heater core. And I think probably a bit of the radiator as well, but majority into the heater core. And basically the way the heater core works is it's like a mini radiator, right? And you have a hose that goes in, and then the coolant flows through, and then it goes out, and the air goes through that to warm up, and then goes out your vents. But the way they've designed it inside of that HVAC box behind your dash is the upper portion of the rad feeds the driver's side, and the lower portion of the heater core, it is a little radiator, but the heater core, the lower portion feeds the passenger side. So as the silt or sand builds up inside of that heater core, it starts to cut the heat off starting from the passenger side. So the more and more you get, the more and more it cuts the heat off until you're pretty well left with just the driver's side. And if you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of passengers in your vehicle, you almost won't even notice until somebody gets in your car and says like, oh, it's cold over here. And then you feel the vents and go like, oh yeah, that's weird. I got heat on one side, not the other. So that's what's going on. Now to fix this, it's fairly simple. You drain your cooling system, and then you pull these hoses off. These are your heater core hoses. One's an inlet, one's an outlet. And then obviously I'm doing this while the cooling system's cold. You'd never want to open this up while it's warm. And it's a good time too to change the thermostat. This has the 2.4 liter engine. Thermostat's right here. It's like 2 bolts and a hose clamp. And it's probably pretty cheap, but you don't have to. I don't have one, not doing it today, but we're going after this heater core. So we're gonna just basically take these hose clamps off here, and they're pretty rusty, so hopefully they don't let go on me. But once we get the clamps off, we can yank our lines off, and then obviously collect our coolant into a container. We don't want to spill that onto the ground or anything like that. And then we're gonna get the garden hose. I have a bucket underneath collecting that, you can hear that. I'm gonna get the garden hose, and we're just gonna flush that with pressure water, and flush it one way for 5 minutes, and then stick the hose on the other side, flush it the other way for 5 minutes. Then I've actually got an additive that is made by Clean Flow. This is a 10-minute rad flush, so it's aluminum compatible. Basically, it's just a bunch of chemicals, nasty chemicals. It breaks down all of the deposits and whatnot that are inside the cooling system. And yeah, you let that sit in there. I like to let it sit in there for longer than 10 minutes. I let it sit in there for about 30 or 45 minutes, I found. I've used this product probably 100 times, or almost 100 times maybe. I've done a lot of cooling flushes, but I just take a funnel and I plug, I'll plug one side, and you'll be able to tell which side is the top of the heater core and which side's the bottom with the way the water comes out of it. But I'll plug the bottom and I'll use a funnel to fill up that heater core and fill it up full of this stuff and just let it sit. And then it'll work its magic in there and eat all the deposits out, and works very, very well. So the only bad thing is if you have like a really old car and you do this, there is a chance that it might actually eat through the radiator or through the heater core and cause a leak. But I've never seen it myself. I'm just saying it's a possibility it could happen. But anyhow, I'm gonna get the garden hose and we'll start flushing this. Okay, so I'm just gonna use the garden hose, but there is actually a cooling flushing tool. And for those mechanics out there that are watching this, you can go buy that if you want. I'll leave a link in the description below. It's basically just a garden hose, and it's got a step down attachment on it so that you can just stick it into whatever hose. Now you can see I just took the rubber hoses off of the ends of the heater core, and these are steel. So basically in order to use that tool, you would need a section of rubber hose that you would stick on there and then stick the tool in and clamp it on. Then you can just turn the hose on, walk away, and leave it. But I'm actually gonna do this manually. It's gonna suck, but it won't be that bad. I'm just gonna sit here. You can see all that shit coming out. I'm just gonna sit here for, I don't know, probably 5 minutes. I'll just let it run for 5 minutes. And yeah, but yeah, that tool is pretty cool. The one that I used to use did that. Plus there was an air line fitting that you could put your air hose on, and it would like aerate. You could adjust how much aeration the water had, so it would like really just disturb all the stuff that was inside the heater core, and it works very well. Okay, so we're done flushing it both ways. I'm just gonna take my air gun now and blow out whatever water's left in there. And the reason that we get all that water out is because when we add that stuff, I don't want it diluted at all. I want it as concentrated as it can be, and I want it to do the best job it can do. Okay, now I'm gonna get a funnel, and I'm gonna block off the bottom one, this one down here, and we'll pour this stuff in and let it sit for about 30 minutes. Okay, so I just got myself a piece of hose. I stuck a thing in the end there, so we're just gonna try to weasel that on there, see if we can use that as our blocker. Looks like that fit good. And then I got another piece of hose, and I'm just gonna jam that on there. Put it on this way. Sorry, blind you with the light. I got a transmission funnel here. Stuff that in there. Now we can open this up, pour this in. I would recommend to wear gloves and some personal protective equipment with this stuff. It's pretty nasty stuff, so just watch. Don't get it in your eyes. I hate those lights, man. Might have to get a smaller hose. Okay, so I grabbed a different hose. That was the first one I had, was too big. But yeah, now we're just gonna let that sit, and I'll probably just use like a bungee strap, tie that up, and just let it sit for 30 minutes and come back. All right, so that's been sitting in there for about 45 minutes now, and we're just gonna pull these off, And I'll get the garden hose and we'll just flush it out. Once again, we're gonna go one way and then we're gonna go the other way. And like I say, this stuff's real nasty stuff. So you see I got safety glasses on right now. You do not want to get this stuff in your eyes. You don't want to get it on your skin. Like, it's nasty. It smells like gasoline, but worse. So just gonna get that running out. You can see it's like yellow and it's all like kind of foamy. We want to flush this out real good so that we get all of it out. I'm gonna sit here for like probably 5 minutes, go this way and then go the other way. It's a little excessive, but it's just what I like to do. I like to make sure I got the best shot, because when we put it all back together and fill it up with coolant, I don't want to have to take it apart again. So all right, so we got those back on there. Now we got the hose clamps on. Just got to put this other hose on here. If you're just flushing your rad or your heater core and that's all you wanted to do, you don't have to drain the whole cooling system. But I figure we're opening up a cooling system anyways. I'm gonna just get all this crappy coolant out, because like I say, the reason this happens is the coolant starts to break down and then it gets acidic and all that other crap, and it starts to just affect the cooling system in general. So I want to get all that coolant out. So unfortunately, there's going to be a bunch of this coolant that's trapped inside the engine block. There's no drain on these blocks, unlike Toyota. They're a good manufacturer that puts a spigot on the block so you can drain all the coolant. But you would need like a coolant flush machine that would push coolant in and it would push the bad coolant back out, but we don't have that. So we live up north where it gets cold, so you could use like a garden hose and try to like flush it out that way and then use compressed air, but you're not going to get it all out. And this long life coolant, it's a 10-year coolant I was saying. It's already pre-diluted. You don't have to add water or mix it or anything like that. So I don't want to add any water into the system that I can't get out anyways. But we've emptied the most that we can. The only other thing that I got to empty is this reservoir. You can see even the color of the coolant. Like, you'll see when we fill it up, it's more of like a purple. The old stuff is like more pink. But this is like, it looks like peach color. I'm guessing either somebody has added something in there. Look at this. That's not supposed to be in your cooling system, okay? That's the crap that I'm talking about. Turns to jello. And sometimes too, people don't know, if you mix the old coolant and the new coolant together, it turns to gel and just wreaks havoc on your cooling system. Or they'll just grab some Festone from the gas station and pour that in, and then that mixes with the stuff that's in there, and then that turns to jello. So very, very important on Chrysler vehicles, you put the coolant that they call for in and don't mix anything else in, otherwise you're gonna have problems. So I'm just gonna pull this out. Looks like we got two 13mm bolts, and I'll put this into my my bucket of coolant that I'll take out to my recycling container, and that's pretty much it. I might actually I was gonna fill this up with water to flush it, but the rad hose is unfortunately about halfway up the rad, so that means the bottom is gonna be full of water. Kind of sucks, they don't put a spigot on the bottom of these rads either. No spigot, they just two rad hoses, that's it. So I'm not taking the rad out to dump it out either, but got as much as I can out. Gotta empty that and put this hose back on. Oh, actually I already got back on. And I'll get the vacuum filler. So in a second, I'll show you vacuum fill procedure. Okay guys, so this is the vacuum filler. I'm gonna show you how to use this if you've never used one before. They're friggin' awesome. If you do like a lot of cooling services and stuff, I definitely recommend buying one. But if you're just the average Joe that wants to fill it up, you can either free pour it into the rad, which will take a long time, or you can buy one of these funnels. They're pretty cheap online. They come with a bunch of different adapters that'll screw on. Same size as like the cap. And then, yeah, all you do is just a funnel. You just fill it up full of coolant, and it's nice because Once it's full, if you have too much coolant in here, you can just take this and stick it in the hole and then take the whole thing off and then put this back in your jug and pull it, and it'll just drain back into the jug, which is really nice. But so what we're gonna do for the vacuum fill procedure, get ourselves a clean bucket here, and we grab our coolant. Like I say, this runs 10-year coolant, or they call it OAT, O-A-T. This is the part number there. And like I say, the 10-year coolant compared to the 5-year, it's much more purple. So you see? Now that doesn't look anything like the stuff that we pulled out. That was like yellow, gross, nasty. So this is what it's supposed to look like. Now, like I say, the 5-year coolant is very, it's pink, kind of reddish pink. And yeah, you just don't want to mix those together. So if you're not sure, call the dealer. They'll be able to tell you. If you give them your 17-digit VIN, they'll be able to tell you right away what your car takes. So I'm gonna put two jugs of this in here. They're 3.78 liters. And it's already pre-diluted. You can see there, 50-50 pre-mix. Do not add water. And this should be lots. I don't know the capacity for this car, but I'm sure that's more than enough. If we had the engine out of it and the coolant and the block was completely dry and the system was completely dry, then I would say I'd say probably add more. But so you want this on a flat surface. I'm just gonna set that right here. And then we need an air line. What we're gonna do is pull a vacuum on the system. So we're gonna suck all the air out. What we do is just close this valve. You can see there, we're pulling a vacuum on it. And as it's vacuuming, you can see that the hose is actually getting sucked down, pulling all the air out. We're vacuuming everything out. And if there's any coolant that's in the system, it's sucked through this discharge hose that the air is going through. It's making a, what would they call it, the Venturi effect. Air rushes past this opening, and it's, as the air goes through, it's pulling everything out of the system. So, now you can see we're about 26 inches of mercury. And what we're gonna do now is take our pickup hose, stick it in our coolant, and we're just gonna crack this valve, and you'll watch the vacuum's gonna drop, because what's gonna happen, it's gonna replace the vacuum system with our coolant. And so it's just gonna fluctuate as it's dropping. You can just watch, it's just sucking it down. We might have even gotten away with using one jug, but it's better to have more. You can always just pour it back into the bottle. So, and just about done here. There we go. And now that we're done, I'm gonna disconnect my air. I'm going to close my valve. I'm gonna take this off. And I just put my finger over the end, disconnect this piece, and then I'll open the valve, drain everything into the bucket, try not to make a mess. I'll take this over to the sink to rinse that out in a moment. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up our overflow reservoir over here. You can see there's just a spot on there. It says full hot and add. So what I'm going to do is just fill it up to the add, and then because it's cold, right? And we want to run this thing till it gets up to operating temp. And then once it's up to operating temperature, the gauge is halfway. We'll fill it up to where it says full hot. And I'm just going to grab a funnel for this because I just cleaned all this stuff up. I don't want to spill anything. So what I'm going to do is just grab this, make sure it's clean, dust free, looks good. Set that there. Just dump a bit of this in. Let me know when we get to that. Is that good?
Right there.
Cool. All right, now we're gonna run the car and just let it get up to operating temperature. What I might do is just leave the cap off for a couple minutes of it running and just top it up as necessary. This is, I would say, 99% of the way full, but the last 1%, we just need to top it up. As the engine runs and the water pump circulates the coolant, if there's any air pockets in the system, which there shouldn't be, they'll burp to the top of the system, which is where the cap is. So let's run it and we'll top it up and stick the cap on it.